Story 1. I was floating up towards the ceiling of the operating room and toward the light. At that point, it was just the bright lights in the operating room. I looked down and saw my body with many people around it. I did not feel any attachment to my body or regret upon leaving it. I felt mildly curious as to what they were all doing. I decided it was really none of my concern. I felt so light and free of the pain of the past several weeks and free of the pain of my life up to that point. I felt like I had nothing too important to keep me from leaving, especially since my body had been nothing but a source of pain. I felt more than ready to go. I continued floating up and out of the hospital. I saw the city and all the people going about their business. The higher I floated, the people and places growing smaller and smaller until I could see the earth itself growing smaller and smaller. I began to feel and see a complete connection to everyone. Every creature, every plant, every rock, everything. I could see how we are all connected, part of each other, and part of God. I felt so much love. I felt a joy that is indescribable. I really don't have the words to describe how completely joyful, perfect, whole, and part of everything I felt and knew. Before I died, I questioned everything. Here, I knew everything, and there were no more questions. At one point, I floated into the clouds and decided to stop there for a bit. I have no idea why I did that, and it doesn't really matter, I suppose. I stopped just for pure joy. I remember becoming smaller and smaller until I became part of the cloud. I became a water particle and then smaller than that. I kept shrinking until I was just like an atom, perhaps. I could see each particle of the cloud and what we looked like down to our tiniest level. It was beautiful. We were beautiful. I had shed the sense of my body very quickly. I was simply nothing and everything all at once. I eventually left the cloud, still with no sense of a body. I was I. I was pure energy, purely beautiful and whole. I was pure love and yet still me. I left the earth and went toward the light very quickly after that. I was part of the light. I could have stayed there forever, and I maybe did because time no longer existed. I then became aware of 3 beings. They were golden light and beautiful. We were one yet separate somehow. They sometimes had a form and sometimes were only an amazing golden light. I knew them somehow, but not from the life I had just left. They called me their beloved daughter and said that I had a choice to make. I could come with them and dwell in the light forever, or I could go back to being the daughter Margaret. I couldn't understand why they thought I would want to go back. Being there with them was so beautiful. They told me my lessons were not complete, and I still had much to learn and much to teach others. They told me that I was needed. They told me that they are always with me, and that I must remember that I am not alone. None of us are ever alone, no matter how much we may feel so from time to time. Life is beautiful even when we know nothing but pain. My choice all came down to love and responsibility to one another, so I chose very reluctantly to come back. This story was shared by Karen M. and happened in 1974. Story 2. I remember thinking, good, I'm not drowning anymore. And then I started thinking, it's because I no longer have lungs. I felt the most wonderful peace I have ever been in. It was a huge amount of peace and tranquility, much more than the words peace and tranquility can define. It was amazing. I thought to check if I could see something, but I no longer had eyes either. I heard the people from the bar crying. I heard that the doctors were doing things to me. But since I had no mouth, I couldn't tell them that everything was perfect, although I wasn't worried either. I was like been wrapped in cotton, in the best place you could be. Then, they suddenly took me out of there. I felt a very strong pain in my leg and chest. 2 adrenaline needles pricked me, since apparently the first one had not revived me. Suddenly, I had legs and a chest again and lungs, and I suffocated again and died. I remember thinking, what am I doing here again? And even now, while grateful because they had saved me, I don't feel grateful with all my being. I remember that afterwards, I was shaking violently. They took me to the Plato Hospital and they kept me there. I cried when I saw my husband, who had arrived before me at the hospital. Our neighbors had alerted him. He cried the whole time because of what had happened, because of what he had lost, because of the sadness of having to go through this subsequent torture. In that other place outside of my body, I felt incredibly well. Since I came back, everything seems a bit unreal, as if I were a bit dissociated from reality. as if my work now doesn't make much sense, as if I don't attribute as much importance to my belongings. The materialist dreams I had before have disappeared. And before, I was very afraid of death. The experience of death is wonderful. What is painful is what leads you to it, but I don't remember it being too painful in my case either. I don't remember too much the pain right before I died. It's as if what came next was so incredible that it made the ordeal disappear and erased it from my memory. It's either that or I have retained it in the form of a trauma, and I still have to get it out. I'm seeing a psychologist who helps me with my current rejection of food. In 2 months, I have lost 7 kilograms, but these past 2 weeks I feel happier, a little more at peace. Even so, I have spent almost 2 very complicated months with fears and anxiety. Even now, I am on sick leave because they are investigating my allergies, which at the moment are a bit of a medical mystery. I've been wanting to write about my experience for a long time, but I feel weird about it, as if I couldn't explain it in such a way that what I've experienced is understood. It's as if my language doesn't have enough terms. This story was shared by Alicia S. and happened in 2023.
Story 3. I feel what caused me to have the NDE was the nitrous oxide gas. Nitrous oxide was nothing new to me or my friends. I passed out as usual, but I came up out of my body. I slowly started to float up into the corner of the room. I saw a huge, bright white light off into the distance. It was on the side as I was going up into the corner of the room. I passed what I would guess would be Jesus or God. I'm unsure who it actually was, but he had long, grayish-white hair and a long beard. It would be exactly what I would expect an older Jesus to look like if I was having someone draw a picture. As I passed in front of him, I was up there on this cloud with him looking down on my body. I could see everything in the room, and I could also see the white light in the distance. My body was just lying there motionless as I saw my coworker sitting in the chair partying. The one thing that stands out the most at this point is the feelings I had while I was up on that cloud looking down at my body. I wasn't scared or in pain, but felt the exact opposite. I felt a feeling of love that was thousands of times more powerful than any love I have ever felt. It's impossible to describe in words. Everything was very peaceful. I do not remember hearing any noises at all. There was just a feeling, love and peace. As I'm looking down on my body, a question came to my mind. There were no words spoken, yet I was asked if I wanted to stay up here or go back down. Everything went fast after that because as soon as I made a choice to go back down, I headed back down. I went into what I can best describe as a pitch-black tunnel or cone that started out big. As I got into the tunnel, I soon reached the end, which was pinhole-sized. I heard this loud pop sound, which was the time I popped back into my body. I sat up and immediately asked my friend how long I passed out. He told me not that long. It felt to me like I was up there for a little bit experiencing all of that. This was 27 years ago, and I never forget it. This experience changed me. From that point on, I became spiritual, as I know we are all being watched by our Creator above. All our thoughts and intentions are known. So from that point on, I slowly but surely got away from all the drugs I was doing and distanced myself from the negative energies around me. Since this NDE, I feel it has opened me up to experiences that maybe I wouldn't have had if I didn't have that NDE that day. It is like I will get visions and or thoughts in my mind of things that come true either immediately or later in the day. I saw a UFO a year or 2 after this incident. A couple years ago, my wife and I saw some orbs in the yard. I have had weird things happen with sleep paralysis before with a shadowy figure. I feel that I am lucky to experience a lot of things that a lot of people are skeptical of or have never experienced before. I'm the type of guy that also doesn't like to believe in things unless I've actually experienced them myself. Now I can 10,000% guarantee you that the stories you hear of the white swirling light floating up into the corner of the room and using telepathy is all real when it comes to NDE, since I have experienced all of these things. This story was shared by Tony W. and happened in 1995.